Speaking of Roma, actually, we're going nowhere near Roma. It's this week's start bench sell. So we're not going to do the scout Hamz because we spoke about so many different players there, and it's the international week this week, so you can have a break off from our scouting reports. This week's start bench sell. Start bench sell is all about our three teams' players. So we've got one from Man United, one from Spurs, and one from Chelsea. They're all left wingers. They are great left wingers, and they have been great wingers in the Premier League and across Europe and in world football as well, on the biggest stage of all, in European football and in international football. One of our guests who's meant to be on, Danny, I know you're going to be listening to this later on. You avoided this question when I asked you this in public regarding Heung Min Son and Marcus Rashford, and he just avoided it completely. So I'm like, yeah, cool. When you're next on the podcast, we'll do this one. He was meant to be on, and has bailed on us. Has Gareth bailed on us, which is embarrassing. So Chelsea, Raheem Sterling is not Raheem Sterling of old, but everyone's saying, oh yeah, Raheem Sterling back. Lewis, what can you kind of tell us about Raheem Sterling's start to the season so far before we get into start bench sell of Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, and Heung Min Son? Is he looking like his best self again?
Definitely. I think that Pochettino said to Raheem Sterling what every fan was saying to each other last year was, why isn't he taking anybody on? Like, Raheem Sterling is known for taking players on and being explosive and being tricky and just being very dynamic and putting fullbacks on the back foot. And he just wasn't doing that under Potter or under Lampard. And he just looks an absolute shadow of himself. And it says it all that he had such a subpar season in terms of his very high standards, because he's an absolute winner. Let's not get it wrong. And he still was our top goal scorer last year, Raheem Sterling, which is mad to say. So I think so far he's been Chelsea's best player. I think he looks like Sterling of old. He's taking more people on. He's getting more crosses into the box. And I'll give you a little stat, Hamz, that Chelsea have created the most big chances in the league, and we've also missed the most big chances in the league. So I think that, again, mentioned about the training ground before, I think let us cook. Let us cook for a little bit. It'll get worse before it gets better, but let us cook.
You're starting on the appetizer and you've got Gordon Ramsay throwing them back in the kitchen, throwing them against the wall. It's raw. That's what Gordon Ramsay's saying. And someone who was a little bit raw last season was Heung Min Son, Travis, as well. And it's looking like the captaincy has elevated his game a lot more as well. One good story I've seen from Heung Min Son this week is he's been calling a lot of the younger Tottenham players on international duty. And Papa Sarr was one of the players who posted about it on social media, having a FaceTime with Heung Min Son, who was helping him get settled into his international camp, making sure he's eating properly. And that's a nice story to hear about Heung Min Son. Even though I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, there's a player I only see in my nightmares. And Heung Min Son faking an injury against Scott McTominay in lockdown football is always in my nightmares. So I'm not one of Heung Min Son's biggest fan. That was a nice moment. And I'm always the biggest hater of Heung Min Son because, again, he's one of those players who has a nice reputation, but is still not a good player to kind of play against. But are we seeing the best of Heung Min Son as El Capitano now, Travis?
Yeah, I think what I would say about Son is I think there's a good chance when he leaves Tottenham that he'll go down as my favourite player of all time for the club. And I think there's a lot of Spurs fans who'd say the same. And he's really showing why that is this season as captain. He does seem to have taken that responsibility on his shoulders very well. He didn't start the season too well. He's not been setting the world alight, but obviously Burnley at the weekend, he was on fire. 3 very, very well taken goals. The first one especially, the finish was sublime, just dinking it over the goalkeeper. And like you say, he's been a real role model to the younger players in the squad. We have got a very, very young squad now. Players like Sarr, Adogi, they're going to need help to settle into this new team, this new system, and having someone who's so professional and such a good player as well always helps to be a good role model. Someone like Son. Will
can I interject and can I say, is this the first start bench sale we've had in a while, Travis, where all 3 of these players are not good role models, but exceptional role models for what they've done outside of football and inside of football as well, and how they've carried themselves? Would you agree or disagree, Travis? I
would 100% agree with that, actually. Rashford obviously is off the pitch work. Sorry, there's nothing I can say about it that hasn't already been said.
Your neighbours have been well fed, Travis. My neighbours have been well fed. They're okay right now. They're not going through our bins. They're not going through our bins or anything. They're okay. We're good. We're good in that respect.
Yeah, nice. I would actually really agree in terms of Sterling too. I think there was a period where the media really were on Sterling's back and trying to paint him as this negative character, which he really isn't. You can see among the Chelsea squad, he is a role model and he is one of the leaders. And I think everything that I see of Sterling outside of football, he looks like a terrific guy. He just seems really sort of high on life. Like he loves everything that he does, and that's always a great thing to see as well when you see footballers genuinely happy, playing with a smile on the face and enjoying what they're doing. So Sterling's a great example of that too. I would 100% agree that they were all great role models in their own respects. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, enough of the niceties. We have to get into our start bench. So everyone's got their well-deserved praise and fair play to all of them. They've been amazing left wingers, at least for Raheem Sterling and Son Heung-min for the last 8-9 years, respectively, in the Premier League. Marcus Rashford since around 2016 when he made his debut. But yeah, let's just get into it. So
272 Premier League appearances for Son, 106 goals and 52 assists.
Raheem Sterling with 352 Premier League appearances, 117 goals and 59 assists. And Marcus Rashford with 243 appearances, 77 goals and 38 appearances. Lewis, being the guest today, you have the opportunities to start off our ever controversial but ever entertaining start, bench, sell. Let's go, my friend.
Okay, this is a lot of pressure, so I hope you know that. I'm going to go off the premise on current form because
no, we don't do current form. We do all time.
All time. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So it can be Sterling at Man City, it can be Heung Min Son at Hamburg, it can be Marcus Rashford in the academy, whatever it is, but all time, not just 2023-24 season. So we're okay.
Oh, this makes it so much easier. So starting, I'm going to go for Raheem Sterling. I think for partially mentioned on what I said before, he's a winner. I think this year you will see him take on that leadership role. It's already said that he's very close to Cole Palmer anyway, and when he was at Man City, he took him under his wing there. So I think you'll see Sterling take on that role and gradually work up the hierarchy in terms of one of the big guys in the dressing room. And apart from last season where he was subpar, he's ever so reliable. And I think if you're looking not just for his clubs, even for England, he's been so reliable at major tournaments. And even when there was times, I think it was Euro 2020, or when they were saying, he shouldn't have gone, and he absolutely dug us out of so many holes. So yeah,
I justified my selection?
I think so.
That's what he said. He said after the Croatia game when he scored the winner, he's like, the guy was like, have you justified your selection? And he looked around at the crowd celebrating. He's like, have I justified my selection? Okay. He just scoffed and he's like, yeah. Winning goal against Croatia, winning goal against Slovakia or Slovenia, scored against Denmark in the semi-final, which counted as an own goal in the end. Contributed in the Germany win after scoring the first goal, I would say, against Germany. So Raheem Sterling, for my opinion, has been one of England's greatest ever players, getting us to the highest of heights that we've seen since 1966. He's also been one of the best players in the last 10 years for England, amongst Harry Kane, amongst John Stones, and amongst Jordan Pickford, respectively, because we all can remember that monstrosity against Iceland. And even though it's the international break, you still kind of get excited with a lot of these players coming in. But Raheem Sterling isn't in the England squad this time around, which I think is quite embarrassing from Gareth Southgate standard. If Calvin Phillips gets game time, if Maguire gets game time, but Raheem Sterling, who's getting back to his best form, is getting omitted from the side. I personally find that embarrassing from Gareth Southgate's point of view, because it's one rule for some and one rule for others. But Raheem Sterling is the one that kind of Gareth bailed out Gareth Southgate's job after so many times. I said Gareth Bale, but you know how I say Bale as in like Gareth Bale. So anyone listening, you should know that by now, and the boys know it as well. But Gareth Southgate's been bailed out by Raheem Sterling so many times, especially at Euro 2020, especially in the Nations League as well, getting to the I think it's a playoff game they got in the third place position they got. But yeah, not happy with Gareth Southgate, not happy bunny with that one. But good shout there with Raheem Sterling. Did you say he was your starting one, Lewis?
Yeah, he's starting for me.
And who's going to be benching, who's going to be sold for you?
So I think Rashford's going to be on the bench for me, and unfortunately Sonny is going to go. I know he's a 100 club member, but I'm all about winning. Unfortunately, he's won nothing. He's won absolutely nothing.
He's done absolutely nothing, Son Heung-min. It's insane.
He's won nothing. So ultimately, I'm all about winning. And yeah, sorry, Sonny, individual accolades is all you'll get, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, he's the captain of Tottenham Hotspur, but Travis, it felt like he was the captain of your heart then as well, saying he's the best ever, your favourite ever Tottenham player. Where do you stand on start bench sell from your point of view, Travis? And reaction to Lewis's one as well, of course. Nicely done.
Yeah. The other thing I just wanted to comment on about Sterling is you mentioned how he's in the squad, but he's not in the squad, but Phillips and Maguire are. He's not going to play instead of Maguire. They're not going to put him centre back or CDM.
But even with centre backs, you can go for someone else there. With CDM, you can go for James Ward-Prowse as well. I
totally 100% agree that Phillips and Maguire should be nowhere near the squad.
Sterling should be on the starting sheet for me, personally.
I don't know. I think if you look at the players who are in the attacking area of the pitch in that squad, I don't think you can argue that over the last 12 months, Sterling's been better than any of them. I
mean, over the last 12 months, Maguire shouldn't be anywhere near the England side, and neither should Calvin Phillips.
Agreed, but it's a separate issue for me. I think Sterling,
I
love him. I love Sterling, but, Saka, Rashford, Kane, Foden, Eze, can you say that he's been better than any of those players over the last 12 months? I don't think so. Maybe in the next 12 months, he might get back into the squad, but I don't disagree with this exclusion at this point in time.
It's just because I always go on to Gareth Southgate, because he's always said, since his beginning, he's always going to pick players based on form.
Yeah, that's true. And he's always said he'll pick players who he trusts as well. And Sterling has never played badly for England while Southgate's been in charge. I mean, there's been
times racismo. That's what I say from Gareth Southgate.
Yeah. There's been times where I think Kane has not stood up to be counted for England. He's perhaps not, the Euros group stages, for example. I don't think he scored a goal in the groups. He only really come to life in the knockouts. And then Sterling carried us through that period. And there were periods in Southgate's tenure where, like you say, 100% agree, Sterling's kept his job. If you are going off form, maybe he shouldn't be in there, but it's a debate for another day, I guess. In regards to the start bench sell, Lewis, I'm fuming, mate. I'm completely in disagreement with you. Maybe it's bias, but I would be starting Son 100% every day of the week and twice on Sunday. The way I look at those three is Son has to start because he's the only world-class player out of those three. He's the only player who has ever been world-class out of those three, in my opinion. I think for as good as Sterling was at Man City, he never carried that City team on his back the way that Son has done at times, especially when Kane was injured.
So what about Marcus Rashford carrying Manchester United?
Yeah, I guess so. I just think Son did it to a better degree at times. I mean,
Marcus Rashford won a trophy last season. Son hasn't.
So. The Mickey Mouse Carabao Cup. It doesn't count really.
What?
No trophies count for Spurs then, if that's the case.
Well, exactly. We ain't got one.
You say carried them to what though? You say obviously Travis, he's carried them to what? No, it's
not all about accolades though, is it? I mean, is for example, is Alexander Butner a better Premier League player than Steven Gerrard because he's won a Premier League and Gerrard hasn't? For me, trophies are obviously massive. Of course they are. But I don't think you can say he's not a world-class player or Sterling or Rashford are better than him just because he hasn't won a trophy. It's not his fault he plays for Tottenham. I think we could have Messi, Haaland, Ronaldo all in their prime as a front three for Tottenham and we still wouldn't have won a trophy somehow. It's just
I wouldn't say that. Look at Messi at Inter Miami. He's balling out there as well, scoring every other game.
The difference is Inter Miami haven't got the Tottenham curse when it comes to trophies. There's just something about the club which means we just repel them.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I could talk all day defending players who get labelled as not as good as others because they've not won trophies. It baffles me that you can rate a player's ability on how many trophies they've won. It all depends on the team and the timing and all this sort of stuff. But for me, like I say, Son, I think, is the only player out of the three who's ever been world class, in my opinion. I think I'd really struggle for who I'm benching and who I'm selling, though. It's just a gut feeling I'm going to go Sterling. I'm going to bench Sterling and sell Rashford, I think. My feeling is with Sterling that he's had a longer period of consistency. I think Rashford has had period. I mean, last season, Rashford, he looked like the best player in the world for a little while. Rashford, he was just unstoppable, but we don't see that all the time. And we haven't consistently seen that during his time at United, whereas Sterling has always been, I think, a very, very consistent performer until he's joined Chelsea. But who can you look at Chelsea over the last 12 months since he's joined and say they've been fantastic? So for me, I'm going to start Heung Min Son. I'm going to bench Raheem Sterling, and I'm going to sell Marcus Rashford.
Nicely done. It's looking like a biased one from all three of us, I would say.
I did think that was going to be the case, to be fair.
We're all going to back our boys, and I don't blame us at all. I'm definitely going to be starting Marcus Rashford on this one. So Marcus Rashford is one of the best clutch players I've seen at Manchester United since probably Wayne Rooney, I would say, in my opinion as well. Marcus Rashford has scored 28 goals against the Premier League Big Six since his debut in 2016 against Arsenal, scoring 2 goals against the Gunners at Old Trafford in his Premier League debut as well. He is someone who, when we see him play in his best position on the left wing, where he was played by Jose Mourinho at first, that was when you see Marcus Rashford shine. You see him flourish. If I can recall you back to the game against Liverpool, against a team that we never really win in modern times, and we beat Liverpool 2-1 at that time because Marcus Rashford's playing off the left and taking on defenders one-on-one. And he's one of the best one-on-one merchants I can see in the Premier League because he can actually do it properly, unlike players on our other wing, which just want to turn back and pass to their fullback, which is quite embarrassing in my point of view as well. His precision, his poise on the ball is something that a lot of players will aspire to be like in the future as well. And with Marcus Rashford as a striker, as kind of Travis alluded to, his inconsistency has been quite bad. And I blame the inconsistency, not due to the change of managers or change of systems or whatever it is. It's due to the change of position. And unfortunately, Marcus Rashford is a Man United academy player. And when you're an academy player from Man United, you're expected to play in multiple positions to learn the role of a striker, of a midfielder, and as a defender. That's how a lot of players come up growing through the academy. Axel Tuanzebe coming up playing as a right back, centre back, defensive mid. Scott McTominay being a defensive mid, attacking mid, centre back. Marcus Rashford grew up being a right winger, striker, and a left winger, and he also played as a goalkeeper when he was younger as well, Marcus Rashford. But now he's kind of matured and he's kind of filled out his body in a way. Left wing is his position. So as we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, if Anthony becomes a he who shall not be named part 2 for Manchester United, I would hate to see Marcus Rashford start as a right winger. Play Pellistri there, play Mason Mount there, for example. Anyone but Marcus Rashford. Play their best players in their best position. And for me, if you play Marcus Rashford in his best position at left wing, you get the best of these 3 players because he can bring it to the table. He can lead players forward. He can bring that clutch performances. But unfortunately, like we said about Bruno Fernandes last week, Travis, he's surrounded by a bunch of duds in his team. That's embarrassing from Man United, like we said at the beginning of the podcast. But I'll back my boy and I'll start Marcus Rashford on this one. Benching, because we're doing it over their careers, I'm going to go for Raheem Sterling. It might be a bit of English bias there, but I think Raheem's actually, it's a bias because I don't like Heung Min Son because he dived after the Scott McTominay thing, and I'm not a fan of that. That's why it's a bias. But benching Raheem Sterling on this one because I think he's a fantastic player, and I think we will see 2-3 good seasons from Raheem Sterling as well. Remember, he started playing Premier League football at 17 years old for Liverpool, which is insane. But I do have to shout out Heung Min Son because we have never really seen, besides Park Ji-sung, besides Park Ji-sung, we've never really seen a South Korean footballer come to European football and consistently play quality football. And Heung Min Son has definitely outshone Park Ji-sung, even without the trophies. I do have to admit that. Unfortunately, I have to admit that, put my hands off that. He's outshone Ji-sung Park in being probably the greatest ever Korean footballer we have seen in our lifetime. And Heung Min Son can put his accolades wherever they can at the end of the year, his individual accolades, which would be great. Top scorer in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. Realistically speaking, he should be on fire working with James Maddison this season. If he gets another striker in January, he will be even better going forward. But I'm not going to forgive Heung Min Son for the against Man United. That was embarrassing for me. But yeah, starting Marcus Rashford, benching Raheem Sterling, and I'm selling Heung Min Son. But high praise to all 3 of them because they're very respectable professionals in world football as well, which is great.